Welcome, everyone. My name is Rich Shortall. I'm the Executive Officer for Fire Safe Marin. We're here today doing what we call a workshop, and the purpose of the workshops is to give an opportunity for each of the 5 zones of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority to talk about all the great work that they've been doing during the year. We're fortunate today to have what we think of as the Western Zone, probably can be explained better by Gavin here, but I'm going to let Gavin introduce himself and explain what the Western Zone looks like, and then he's going to talk about some of the projects that they're doing out there. Gavin?
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. And yeah, just a quick introduction. My name is Gavin Avertoli, and I'm a project manager here at Marin County Fire. I work under the Vegetation and Fuels Management program here. And so I'm going to show a little bit of the work that we've been doing this past year and what we're planning for the upcoming year with MWPA funds. And I'll go straight into it, describing kind of our West Zone and what makes up this zone. As Marin County Fire, we lead most of the work and planning that goes behind the projects in the West Zone, but we work very closely with the other 3 agencies that make up the zone. So that's Bolinas Fire District, Inverness Fire District, as well as Stinson Beach Fire District. And as you can see on the map here, our West Zone covers a very large area from Stinson Beach on the coast all the way up through Tamales, and then out east to Nicasio, and all the way down through the San Geronimo Valley. And a large portion of the West Zone also includes lands that are owned by our partner management agencies. So that's state parks, National Park Service, as well as Marin Water. And so we are also working constantly with those other agencies to coordinate and collaborate on some of the fuel reduction, wildfire mitigation projects that we have in the West Zone here. So the focus areas that make up kind of our department in the West Zone's wildfire mitigation strategy are shown here. So that's defensible space through inspections and resident assistance, evacuation route improvements through roadway clearance, as well as vegetation management. That's fuel reduction and modification projects, as well as fire road vegetation clearance projects. And this really is the core of our program here. And I have a photo here on the right of the Marin Community Wildfire Protection Plan. This is kind of a guiding document that gets updated kind of every few years, and it really provides the framework that guides our program and also influences and prioritizes the projects that we work on. So I'm going to quickly go over some project highlights from this past year, so from the 2022-23 fiscal year. And so one of the big successes and something that we really wanted to highlight was the evacuation route clearance work that we were able to do in the coastal zone. That includes work, or at least planning for work, in Bolinas, Stinson, and Inverness. And I'll go in a little more depth with some before and after photos on just why we're so proud of this work, because there was a lot of planning and compliance that went into getting that 6 miles of road treated in Inverness this year. Some of the other highlights here are fuel reduction projects. So that would be the Stinson Beach fuel break that was implemented by Stinson Beach Fire, as well as Marin City Fuel Reduction Zone, Throckmorton Ridge Vegetation Management Zone, and the San Pedro Mountain Fire Road Fuel Reduction. And then we're also, through MWPA funds, able to purchase a new chip truck that supports all of these projects, as well as our green waste removal projects. So here we have a before and after photo of some of our evacuation route clearance work that was done in Inverness. I believe this is Drake's View Drive. And I really want to point out the overhead clearance that we were able to achieve. And this really allows for our fire apparatus. Oh, let me go back here. So I was just speaking on the overhead clearance that we were able to achieve through this project, opening up sight lines and making it a lot easier and more efficient for our fire apparatus to get up these oftentimes narrow roads. And this past year's focused on prioritizing roadways that are in many cases the only and primary road out of these communities. And that was the case on Drakes View Drive. This is the main access for the community and was a real priority for us to get cleared. This work also reduces the potential for roadside ignitions and provides potential anchor points in areas for firefighters to fight fire from. Here I have another photo, a couple photos here before and after. This one is also in the Drakes View Drive area. And you can see just some of the light work that we did, kind of removing some small diameter, some brush along the roads. And this area was actually treated before, and you can see the resprouting, I think it's tan oak, on the right-hand side. And it's something that we focused on reducing the fuel load again and making sure these roads are open for our routine and emergency first responder access. All right, so I'm going to move a little bit further south in the county. This one's up on Throckmorton Ridge. And this was a collaborative project with California State Parks that was funded by the MWPA. This project here is directly downslope and west of Panoramic Highway that you can see in this left photo. It's adjacent to the Muir Woods Park community and is a kind of a key ridge line between Muir Woods and the city of Mill Valley. We treated approximately 30 acres of coyote brush and encroaching Doug fir. And this project will reduce potential fire intensity and create a buffer zone of safe fire operations and reduce potential ember creation adjacent to the ridgetop community separating Muir Woods and the city of Mill Valley. This project, we were able to use our TAM fire crews as well as our foundry crews to get that work done. And that photo on the right is one of the processes we use for green waste or debris removal. And that is us doing some prescribed pile burning that was done this past spring. This is another project in one of our county service areas down in Marin City, where we also have prevention responsibilities. So this is the Marin City Fuel Reduction Zone project. We treated just under 11 acres in this area that interfaces between the Marin City community and the National Park Service lands, as well as the 101 corridor. In this particular photo here, you can see kind of the heavy fuel load downslope of this apartment complex. It was really heavily vegetated with almost primarily non-native and invasive species, a lot of cotoneaster, French broom, acacia, eucalyptus, and you can see some pampas grass as well. So this is an area that we really prioritize just because of its location downslope of infrastructure. It was an area that we not only cut the material, but we completely removed it. Sometimes we masticate it and leave it in place, but this was because of its location on the slope below the structures, we completely removed it. And you can kind of see in that after photo the end product with some trees, mostly native, the oaks and bays that we left, as well as limbing up some of the non-native species like those eucalyptus there. And the final project that I'll highlight from this past year is a project that was implemented by Stinson Beach Fire. It's the Stinson Beach fuel break. As you can see in the photos, it was a project that removed a heavy component of coastal chaparral a lot of coyote brush and actually a lot of non-native echium from an area directly upslope of the community of Stinson Beach. This was a collaborative project with the National Park Service. And this one, let's see, I think this is the only photo I have. I don't have the acreage, but this was a great project that Stinson Beach took on and did a great job managing and implementing this past spring. So another key component of our department's wildfire risk and mitigation strategy, is defensible space inspections and our defensible space inspection program. So we have been part of, and we're kind of one of the founding members of the Marin Defensible Space Alliance. And so this group is made up of our department, Central Marin Fire, Kentfield Fire, Ross Valley Fire, and Southern Marin Fire Protection District. We have currently this year 3 full-time staff working with a team of 28 seasonal inspectors to complete these important inspections. They're using state-of-the-art inspection software this year that was developed around the program, and it generates interactive and electronic reports for each resident. The inspections help and equip individual residents and property owners with the knowledge and tools to address important hazards associated with their homes and surrounding areas that we know can make a huge difference during small and larger fires. The reports provide prioritized actions and information regarding home hardening, creating defensible space, and emergency evacuation. And I just have some stats from just this year, so starting in January up to this point. So that team has done 5,000 inspections countywide, and they've done just over 1,300 inspections this year in unincorporated areas of Marin. So that would be our western zone. And this just shows the defensible space program's upcoming schedule here for our western zone communities, as well as the county service areas. So San Geronimo Valley communities can expect to see that team coming into the valley this week, with Stinson Beach and Bolinas following later in July. And for our county service areas, that's California Park, Los Ranchitos Country Club, and Bayside Acres in San Rafael. You'll start seeing that team in your neighborhood in August, and Marin City starting in July as well. So we work very closely with that defensible space program. And in 2021, we started offering no-cost hazardous plant removals in select communities. And that was taking place after our inspections. So we were able to provide professional removal of juniper, cypress, bamboo, and other fire hazardous plants at no cost to residents. And we successfully removed hundreds of plants from properties in Marin City, Santa Venetia, Oak Manor, and Muir Woods Park. We're happy to announce that we are extending this program into this summer and fall, and that program information will be provided during inspections. And here is a good example of a home in Marin City where we were able to come in following that inspection that identified this particular juniper as a hazard. And we were able to provide them free removal of that juniper, as you can see in that after photo. So this was identified by the defensible space team as a hazard just based on one, its species. So juniper being a fire hazardous species, and then also its, more importantly, its location on the property. You can see that it's kind of entangled in that wood overhang, and then as also pretty much coming up directly against the wood siding, as well as under the window and eaves of that home. So this was something that was identified as a big hazard. We were able to let the homeowner know and sign them up for a free removal and get that risk mitigated through our program. So now I'm going to go into some of the upcoming projects that we have and some of the stuff that we've been planning to start implementing in this upcoming year. And so we are continuing with our heavy emphasis on evacuation route clearance work. We did a lot of great work, like I mentioned, in Inverness this year, and we're going to continue working in our coastal communities. And so that's going to be work in Bolinas starting in July. And then there's a few priority roads in Stinson Beach that we'll be working on after that. In addition to working in our coastal communities, we're also going to be doing additional work, and we have funding through the MWPA to do more work in San Geronimo Valley, as well as Nicosia. Another upcoming project we have is National Park Service project support. So a lot of our West Marin communities are almost surrounded, or they're directly adjacent to federal park lands. So in an effort to increase the pace and scale of work done in these critical areas, we're allocating some funds to provide project support, and that might include things like biological surveys and monitoring. And another big project we have is some coastal zone planning work. And so when working in these coastal communities like Stinson, Inverness, and Muir Beach as well, we are what's called the coastal zone. And so we have essentially another regulatory agency, the California Coastal Commission, to go through in order to gain compliance to get our projects done. So we're hoping through this coastal zone planning effort to streamline some of our mitigation work in this area and develop a long-term strategy and compliance document for future veg projects moving forward. And we are also going to be returning to the Marin City Fuel Reduction Project. So this is a project that I highlighted in the previous slides. We got about 10, almost 11 acres done last year. And so we're hoping to do initial treatment in that remaining 11.5 acreage, as well as go in and do some maintenance on what we've already previously treated this past year. And lastly, some of our local mitigations projects for the upcoming year. Stinson Beach has an emergency evacuation alerting project, and they will be distributing some NOAA weather radios through that effort. Bolinas will also be doing more vegetation management work in coordination with National Park Service, and Inverness will continue their evacuation route veg management project. Lastly, another thing that we have planned and some funding allocated to is project maintenance. So really just not being done with a project when we complete it, but making sure that we're monitoring all of our past projects and kind of utilizing an adaptive management approach to update our treatments and make sure that we're maintaining those areas so that they continue to meet our goals of risk reduction and fuel reduction moving forward. And so, Rich, that's all I have in my presentation.
Well, Gavin, I can't thank you enough. We can shut down the slideshow. That was really exciting. I think we can see that there really are some unique challenges out there in West Marin. When you look at the map, you realize what a large area it is out there. Pretty amazing. And of course, I like the way you covered when you're working in the coastal area. Some of the, as we would call, compliance issues are a little bit more complicated, but clearly you're really on top of that. And are you feeling pretty good about the level of cooperation you're getting out there with getting the permissions you need to do the work and all?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I dove a little bit into it, and I don't want to get too in the weeds on the compliance stuff, but it was a really big effort planning wise to get what was called a coastal development permit to even start work out there on some of our roadside evacuation projects. And so through the MWPA, we were able to fund that effort. And then these communities are communities that have been asking for this work to get done. And we found that once we were in the community doing the work, we're very supportive of the work and really appreciative of it and really involved. So one example was the Paradise Ranch Estates area up on Drakesview Drive. They were very vocal and really helpful actually in the implementation of this project with notification and outreach to the community. And so that really freed up some of our staff time to focus on getting the actual work on the ground done, rather than kind of doing more notification work. So everyone's been really supportive so far. And like I said, we're going to continue to get some good work done in that coastal area and move into Bolinas this next month.
That's great. I think that really goes to show just a really good example of the value of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, because to taking on that task of getting all the compliance, and that means lots of studies, lots of paperwork, all kinds of things. Really, the resources weren't there in the past to do that. Now we're making progress on that. And then it's just wonderful that you're getting the community support, getting the word out. So it's not like, oh, you're coming in and you're, quote, cutting down all the trees, which is not what you do. Everybody's on board. It's just a real positive way to get work done out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some of those photos that I showed kind of, and obviously it's dependent on what road it is, where it is, and what vegetation is there. But a lot of it is really light touch. And like you said, some people think we might come in and clear cut a big swath of area adjacent to the road. But at this point out in the coast, we're really just trying to get really just that small road corridor opened up. So it makes our access easier into communities and everyone's evacuation routes a little more clear in the case of an emergency or even just routine kind of emergencies.
Yeah, I like that descriptor, light touch, because you really could see it in some of those photos out there. But you can see when you don't do it, I think we forget how rural a lot of West Marin is. That doesn't mean that it's just a big ranch or park space. There's homes in those areas out there. And you need, when you can see the fire truck where the growth is right up touching the side of it, the so-called light touch is all the difference in the world, not just for residents to get out, but also fire department to get in. So
absolutely. Yeah, that photo that you're describing was a good one where they are really tight, maybe barely even one lane, right? And sometimes not even paved. So doing what we can to improve those evacuation routes is really important and a key to our kind of overall strategy.
Yeah. Another thing that you're doing out there that's pretty cool is there can be sometimes resistance to prescribed burns. Oh my gosh, there's going to be smoke everywhere. This is going to be terrible. You're going to make a mess of things. I thought the photo that you did of the work on the burn piles was really persuasive. Yes, there's some smoke, but look how controlled it is. You're picking the right days. Can you tell us a little bit more how you do that work with burn piles and what days that you do that work on, how you notify residents?
Yeah, absolutely. So that particular project up on Throckmorton Ridge, so that was treated, like I said, by our foundry and TAM crews last winter. So I think sometime October, November, we did the actual cutting of the brush and piling it. And then we have to wait a certain amount of time for that material to cure out before it's ready to burn and consume like we'd like it to. And so we essentially leave those piles and wait for that perfect window, like you're mentioning, where we have the right wind, everyone's notified, we have the correct resources on staff that day to safely operate that burn. And we're doing quite a bit of outreach, like you said beforehand. That particular project is all on state parks property as well. So in really close communication and collaboration with state parks, we're doing kind of a consistent notification to all the neighborhoods adjacent, as well as just the community as a whole, to make sure they know what's going on before we do any sort of operation like that.
So you contrast that minimal impact onto what it would look like if you hadn't done the initial vegetation removal and it all caught on fire. It would look a lot different than that. So great work out there.
Absolutely.
Maybe my favorite photo was the work that you did in Marin City when you showed two relatively large apartment buildings at the top of a steep slope that was really covered with vegetation. And for me, that's almost my greatest fear and risk when I think of wildfire. And there are a lot of marinas like that. You're sitting at the top of a slope and making that clearance down there. That's the type of thing where I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the fire would just rush right up there, wood frame buildings, the whole bit. So,
yeah, absolutely. Like I said, that was one of the areas we prioritized to get done this past year. Obviously, that's a piece of that greater project that I showed on that map of the Marin City project. but like you just mentioned, a priority area just because what was there in terms of the fuel load and the vegetation and its location in contrast to those buildings upslope, right? We know that if a fire starts downslope, it's going to rapidly move upslope. And if it's there's no separation between that vegetation or fuel and a structure, we're not going to have a great chance of getting to it and suppressing that fire. So this area that we cleared downslope of these structures is going to give us a much better chance to suppress a fire and protect that building in the case of a wildfire.
I think this provides a little reassurance to apartment dwellers also. You know, you don't own the building. It can be sometimes hard to motivate management to take care of things right next to it, but a lot of work that's being done with Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority funding is what you're describing there, where you go just a little bit beyond the property line and you into the areas where we're creating these shaded fuel breaks. And that is really reducing the risk of fire for that property in a big way. So apartment dwellers are getting a lot of the benefit of the MWPA funding, even if it doesn't feel of it like in the same way as a homeowner. So nice work out there on that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And that project, I kind of failed to mention, but we also have an area of that project along the 101 corridor where we've had a few recent fire ignitions. And so we partnered with also Marin Housing Authority to make sure they had some great defensible space between their buildings and the US or the 101 corridor there, where we've had some fire ignitions. So a lot of good successes out of that project, and we look forward to doing more work this year.
Great. So you mentioned your defensible space inspection program or home evaluation program or whatever we call it. Obviously, a lot of work going on there. I was really impressed by the fact that although grants are available to people in West Marin through the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, you also have the direct assistance program where you don't have to get a grant. If you make the right application and you qualify, you can come in and take care of it. That property where you remove the juniper in Marin City, that was a dramatic before and after. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you access the direct assistance?
Yeah, so yeah, again, and you mentioned the MWPA grants, which we advertise heavily, and we definitely push people to pursue those grants as well as using the chipper program provided by the MWPA. But just in addition to that, like you mentioned, we're doing some of that direct assistance where in certain communities, especially those communities where we identify a large amount of those fire hazardous species, whether it's juniper or bamboo or acacia or eucalyptus, we want to make the program available and make it easy for post-inspection you to get rid of those hazards immediately. And so we'll go in and do the inspections, and the inspectors will actually provide that information on if you can be a part of that program and when and how. And we're hoping this upcoming year to provide that program to some of our county service areas in Santa Fe this year. So I think just more to come on that, and you'll hear it directly through your inspectors.
That's great. There are, once again, unique challenges out there in West Marin, and one of them can be communications, alerting systems. You mentioned there, in some cases, NOAA weather radios are going to be distributed. How's that work?
Yeah, so that's a local mitigation project that's being done by Stinson Beach. I don't know the full scope of that project, but I do know that they've allocated some funds to purchase those NOAA weather radios and provide them to areas that probably don't have good cell reception, so may not be always in service, and can be able to use like Alert Marin or Nixle or be near their phones. So that's just kind of another backup to those systems to ensure that everyone gets notified in a safe and quick manner.
And that NOAA radio system can put out the same kind of alerts for a major emergency as you can get in other places, right?
That's correct. Yeah, wildfire or any other emergency.
Great. So the last little thing on my side is it's great that you concluded with maintenance because let's face it, things grow back. So it's really good that you're thinking down that road that way. Now, this is a little bit for Marin residents to think about, which is sort of the attaboy to people who live in Marin for having provided the funding for the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority by supporting Measure C out there. But this really is ongoing, And so it's not like in 5 years or 10 years, everything's going to be taken care of and nothing more needs to be done. It's an ongoing program, and people have really stepped up in this county, and we're seeing agencies like West Marin thinking ahead, thinking about the need for ongoing maintenance, and just really applaud you for doing that and being ahead of the curve there. Is there anything that you'd like to leave? Any last thoughts with the residents?
No, I mean, again, thank you for kind of providing this platform and opportunity to show off some of the work we do. The MWPA and the funding and resources that it provides is a huge part of our program, but certainly not the only one, right? So we also are leveraging like CAL FIRE grants and other grant sources to do other good work throughout the county, and just really trying to take a full 360 approach to the wildfire mitigation strategy that we have here, and kind of use all the resources that we have at hand. So again, though, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to show off some of our work and what we have planned.
Wonderful. Well, thanks very much. You previewed some great projects next year. We look forward to having you come back and tell us how those are going. All right.
Sounds great. Thanks, Rich.
All right. Take care now. Thank you.